We are live. We made it. Glory to God. Thank you for joining us.
We can move so that people don't think we're AI or something.
Yeah. You know what I saw today? I saw the first streamer that I think might be AI.
Oh, really?
It was a little disconcerting. Yeah, I was just like, I think this is an AI. It was weird. It was like this beautiful woman, European, talking, and it had like new agey music behind it, and she's talking about new agey stuff, and I was just like, I think this is AI.
Yeah.
It's
well,
like
a lot
some
of
of
that
the movements felt
is,
a little not normal,
yeah,
weird.
like, I used to love listening to poetry being read by people, and now it's being read by AI, but with, these people's voices, right? Like Tom, what's his name? Is it O'Bedlam or Bedlam? O'Bedlam, I think. Anyway.
Well, yeah, I don't like the channels where it's like C.S. Lewis talking about social media, and it's not C.S. Lewis.
No, and you don't even know.
To be, it's like they said, write an essay about social media using the writing style of C.S. Lewis, and it's like, and then they just have AI read it, and then they put still photos of C.S. Lewis over
and
it.
sometimes AI stuff, like AI video, or oh, it's just,
I hate those.
You know what? It's like the height of laziness.
Yeah, well, it's just exploitation of the algorithm. It's just trying to make money off of a name, off of C.S. Lewis, right? And he's not the only one they do it with. I mean, it's just those are the ones that come up in my feed most often, where it's like, well,
oh yeah, Alan Watts. There's a ton of Alan Watts.
Like that. Yeah. Well, people have been doing that for a long time. They just put Alan Watts together.
Yeah, but now it's not actually his recorded stuff.
Yeah, true.
It's actually just AI saying stuff, and you don't even know if Alan Watts actually said it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, I know. Yeah. It's annoying.
It's Anyway,
we have none viewers so far. That's crazy.
Yeah, that is.
This is the first time. I think this is the first time we've ever gone this far into the show with none viewers.
Zero.
A total of 0.
It's a sign we should leave. No, I'm just kidding.
God sees us. It'll show up in people's algorithm eventually, whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
They may not click on it, but because
I
haven't got the thumbnail game going yet. What's that?
Are we actually there?
Pretty sure.
Are we there yet? Oh, I shut my internet off.
Oh yeah, we're there.
Okay.
Yeah, we're rolling. None watching. I'm the one watching. I was one watching. That's all right. Well, what I was going to now, I was waiting for the show to start to announce that today in 1883 was the first day that Standard Time rolled out in America. And you're asking, what was it before that?
Yeah.
And the answer is every town had their own time zone, and they had it on the town hall. They had a clock on the town hall, and they would set noon to be noon for your town. And that was...
So they were all on a solar...
Yes, they were all on a solar clock where noon was solar noon.
Right.
And so on this day, November 18th, 1883, what they did was they published an article talking about Standard Time. They showed a map, and actually the town where I live, Salt Lake City, was in Pacific Time at the time, which is interesting. But what they wanted to do, the whole goal with time zones was, one, to standardize times for the train so that people could make it to the train on time. So they wanted to have certain areas that all shared the same time so that you knew the people who were traveling in that area would know what time to be at the train station. So they were trying to, and what they did was they took, basically, they didn't want any town to be to have their noon be any further than 30 minutes away from solar noon. So the center of a time zone is noon at solar noon,
Okay.
And the west side of the time zone is
Half
30
an hour.
minutes after, and the front edge of the time zone is 30 minutes ahead of that.
Okay.
So that all the towns in that area are no more than 30 minutes. Their noon drifts no more than 30 minutes from
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So, and they, like I said, they did it for the trains, and they had a big table, and they told in the table, they said all these little towns, and they were like, this town needs to move their clock 4 minutes ahead, and this little town needs to move their clock 6 minutes back, and and so on.
Yeah.
They like told all the cities how much to move their clocks to get them all into the same time zone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. And then daylight saving time came out in World War II, and that's where they shift the clocks later for an hour in the springtime and summertime. And no one really, they tried to justify it by saying it saves energy. It doesn't really, especially now with air conditioning, it definitely doesn't. So anyway, and I'm a very anti daylight saving time person. I am pro standard time, because standard time was, the whole purpose of it was to keep noon as close to possible to noon.
Yeah.
And that's what's better for your biological clock, is better for your circadian rhythms. And as someone who's a little prone to be manic, especially in the summertime when there's too much light, I do not sleep well in the summer at all, because I'm way overstimulated, and I start getting all these grand ideas of how the universe works. And I stay up late at night making outlines of all these interesting presentations I'm going to make about how the world works, and then I crash after like a week of not sleeping. Well, it's not as bad as it used to be. When I was younger, it was much worse. But yeah, I definitely got manic in the summer.
Well, now you know that you don't know anything, Jeremy.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really funny. I sent a quote to my wife today. I'll share it. It was from a saint. Hold on, I'll pull it up. It's totally relevant. And we do have a viewer. Welcome. We're glad you're here. Thanks for joining us. Our first.
I just wondered, when is your Thanksgiving weekend?
Next weekend is Thanksgiving.
Okay, because I thought maybe that was why.
I think, I don't know. I keep getting yeah.
We already had ours.
Yeah. Yours is in October, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to say, well, okay, let me share this quote, and then I'll share my story about Thanksgiving. Sure. So this quote is St. Gregory of Nyssa, and he says, the mind ascends to God not through the accumulation of knowledge, but through the letting go of all that it knows. And I told my wife that apparently my brain got that memo a few years ago, because it is working hard at just letting go of a lot of things I used to know.
Yeah.
It's like, it's gone now. I don't know.
Well, there's in the story of the castle by George MacDonald, there he talks about one of the siblings, because they're all a family in the castle, right? And when things start going well, which is followed by humility. So they have this moment of humility, all of them, where they're humiliated for what they did to their older brother, but also, they lay prostrate on their faces for a day or two, and then he tells them that's enough now. And then things start to change slowly. But there's this, and each one of the siblings has a special interest that they like to pursue. One is an astronomer, and one is a whatever. They're all they all have these little special interests. And so in the story, one of them is so the castle is actually cloaked by mist, and nobody's ever seen the whole thing. Okay. It's always, some part of it is cloaked by mist. And so one of the siblings has been trying to map it out by getting down into the vaults, he calls them, like the subterranean levels. And it's kind of like built onto a cliff, into a rock.
Sounds very Jungian.
Yeah, but
the
it's
Indian brother goes down in the vaults to map it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So he goes down and he's in there. But what starts happening to him after the humility thing, the humility bit, is he discovers that if he goes up into the highest parts of the castle, he can get a better idea of how the castle is built.
Mm-hmm.
And so he starts and he says, you know, he writes in the story, so he ascends to the heights of the castle and he finds out that he can better see the foundation on which the castle is built, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading it and thinking, I wonder if he's talking about theologians who get just like down into the dregs of the language and the etymology and the right, instead of cultivating humility and a spiritual contemplative life where which is to me what ascension is, right? It's that kind of life. That's what it felt like to me anyways when he was describing this guy in the castle. I loved that part.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Well, and also it reminds me of ladder of divine ascent, right, where you go up the ladder and come back down, but and also, you know, like in Jacob's dream with the ladder to heaven when the angels are going up and down. This ties to the conversation I had with Melky on this channel. If you missed it, you should go check it out. It's very fun, very good. He's a good friend of mine. We were just talking about all kinds of stuff, and in there we were talking about this idea that, you know, and Father Turbo is the origin of this idea, at least for me in my mind, in my life, is that he was talking about how, you know, you have a ladder, but you don't live at the top of a ladder.
Right.
You go up the ladder. There's something you need to do. There's something up there you go up. Yes, you can get a better view up there, but it's also dangerous. And you can't stay up there, right? And he made the analogy to Moses going up Mount Zion. He also made the analogy of the Peter, James, and John going up on the Mount of Transfiguration, you know, and Peter did want to stay up there. The first thing he said was, can I build 3 houses for you so that you will stay up, so we can stay up here, you know, and because he was disoriented and it is beautiful, but you can't stay up there, right? You can't stay at the top of the ladder. You can't stay at the top of the castle. You still need to, you know, the dining table is not up there. The says the fat guy. But anyway, I'm just saying, you can't, you know, the animals live down in the bottom of the castle. You got to come down. You got to feed the animals. You got to eat. You got to, you know, there's no bathrooms at the top of the castle. You go up there for a beautiful view. You know, you climb a mountain for a beautiful view, but you don't live at the top of the mountain. You live in the valley, you know, where you can plant food, right? So that's kind of what comes to mind as you're talking about that. Yeah,
it's interesting, but there is a change that occurs when you start to cultivate that kind of spiritual life, which I think cultivates humility. Like, and that's like the key moment in the castle when, you know, because what happens is the siblings, their older brother's kind of the boss of them, and they decide that he doesn't need to be anymore. So they chain him up and they bring him down into a dead dungeon and they chain him up down there. And then they kind of run rampant and they have
like Joseph, basically.
They have a big party. Yeah. They have a big party, and you know, they occupy a room that which is sacred, which is just for the father for when he returns, because he's not there. And they're not supposed to use it for anything else, and they use it for their party. And, you know, anyway, and then the wind blows open all the windows and there's a huge storm and the rain comes in and there's this lightning and the brother's chains are loosed and he comes up. And that's when they all the guests run away, and then all the children, you know, they they fall flat on their faces, and he just leaves them there. He just leaves them for a couple of days, and then he comes in and he says, all right, get up, hi Zeke. And then he says, leave the windows open so the wind can clean the room. It's the Holy Spirit, right? It's the most beautiful story, Jeremy.
Yeah, I haven't read it. That sounds great.
It's a short story by George MacDonald called The Castle. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
It's a beautiful story. But then everybody slowly changes. Like there's a sister who's very young. She's little, and she has a lot. She has a laugh, right? So she's known for her laughter, but even her laughter changes. He says it becomes more bell-like. There's when he does those things, I like to really follow where he's taking me, because he just knows stuff, that guy. He does.
Yeah. Well, there was a I can't remember where I was going. Well, I was just thinking about how on Friday I went to a symposium that my stepdaughter hosted. She's a Latin teacher at a private Catholic school, and she was doing a symposium for her colleagues, and they were talking about translation. And actually, the main text that they used as their reference was Poetic Diction by Owen Barfield.
Wow.
And then also Saving the Appearances by Owen Barfield.
Wow.
And but it was primarily Poetic Diction, and they were trying to give an example of how a poet is pointing at something but can't actually say it. And then going through, and they used a poem by Thomas Aquinas, and she was translating it on the fly, and they were kind of sharing like the poetic devices he was using, and some of the wordplay, and some of the poetic license he was using, and changing word endings to tie things together thematically and stuff like that. It was really, really great. But is this idea that like you're talking about George MacDonald and the story, and it's obviously very allegorical, and it's so funny because you can share a story like that with someone who's secular, and they just think it's kind of a waste of time, or that it's whimsical, or that it's that it, like, the story's coherent, but they probably can't articulate why, and yet they recognize it as coherent, and then there's just like these veiled layers of meaning there that really has only recently started to be rehabilitated in my mind, where I can start to make these poetic connections. And really, I have to credit Jordan and Jonathan for that. Peterson and Jonathan Pageau, they helped move me in that direction. And then you start reading poetry again, and then you start encountering these things in the scriptures, and then reading the church fathers has really been so helpful and beautiful for me, because I grew up with such a literal, like,
materialistic,
very materialist, very like, this was a newspaper article of things that happened 4,000 years ago. And you're kind of like wondering at the relevance and why you're wasting your time reading these genealogies, and not really understanding that there were poetic patterns all through it, and that the poetic patterns repeat over and over and over. I remember telling a friend recently he's Christian, and I just said, I've kind of entered that stage of my life where I'm starting to see myself living out stories in the scriptures. And he's just like, what are you talking about? He's like, that sounds like almost blasphemous. Like, he was serious. He was just what do you mean living out the stories in the Bible? Like, they're not about you. I'm like, oh. Sorry. So it's been a really beautiful journey to have I feel like my humanity is being woken up again by divine liturgy and by poetry. by the scriptures, by the Psalms.
Which is poetry.
Yeah, which is poetry, right? Yeah, we're praying the Psalms right now as part of the Nativity fast, and it's been really, it's so healing, and it heals you. Like it doesn't make sense to your rational mind that just reading poetry out loud is going to have some effect on you, but man, it does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah,
Everything changes.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was watching some woman posted a little documentary that she made where she visited Ian McGilchrist, and I think she called it something about how attention changes the world. It changes the world.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, that was one of the things that really stood out to me in liturgical practices in the church is this constant call to attend.
Yeah.
And then there's all the different orientation within the liturgy, right? Which is what attention demands from you. You have to turn, right? You have to turn and pay attention. Yeah. And I mean, that's my little blueberry story. It's like, quit telling people that there are no blueberries on your property. Have you ever looked down? Like, did you turn your body?
Yeah. Right.
And did you attend? Right?
Yeah.
No, you just assumed because they weren't like jumping out and hitting you in the face.
Right. Well, you see this with science, like in the newspaper all the time, where people are like, "Oh yeah, there's leopards here," and then there's no leopards here. They've not been seen here for 200 years. Stop saying that. And everybody's like, "Bro, what are you talking about?" Or like, cougars or Black Panthers or whatever, right? They're just like, "What? Like, of course there are." No, there's not. We've not scientifically documented that, so it's not real. You're like, oh my gosh, get over it. The same thing though, right? It's just like they can't see it because they think it's not there.
Did you watch Pageau posted a short clip on well, he talked mostly about Rahab, and somebody asked the question if Rahab was kind of like representative of monsters at the edge because she lived in the wall.
Oh,
that was so like, I don't even want to try to do it.
She was a prostitute, right?
Yeah, and he talked about prostitutes as where seed is mixed, right? Like their children weren't sure if she could, a prostitute couldn't tell her kid who his dad or her dad was, right?
Right. Well, she kind of betrayed the city to save her own family.
But she actually has no loyalty to the city. This was what he talked about.
Yes.
Anyway, I don't.
Yeah.
I happened to watch it this morning.
I didn't watch it,
and then I buggered off outside for the rest of the day. And I got to tell you what I did. So you know how you wake up in the middle of the night with ideas about how you can change the world. Well, I wake up in the
how it works. Yeah, I will write about like how it works.
Oh, how it works. Well, I usually wake up early mornings with like huge ideas. It's weird. I don't know.
No, I get it.
Know what that is. But anyway, they're not like unrealizable things like so I woke up a while ago. I'm all worried about my tent because I'm challenging myself, okay, by leaving it up for the winter, because if it snows, I have to go and make sure it doesn't collapse. And what that does is force me to get dressed and go outside in a snowstorm when it's minus 25 degrees Celsius and attend.
Yep.
Like I can't attend if I don't force myself to attend. I won't. I'll just sit in my nice warm house.
Right. Yeah.
So I like to put myself in these challenging positions so that I have to do these things.
That's good.
Anyway, I was so worried about my tent. And then we had a wet snow a couple days ago. It wasn't that much, but it was wet. And I went out to check it, and sure enough, just a little pole had come out at the side, and the tent was up, but one wall was in.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so I woke up thinking, you know what? If I put a market umbrella inside my tent and expanded it open, that would add stability, wouldn't it? So I passed it by my husband, because sometimes I have these crazy ideas, and he goes, that will never work,
Yeah, but with a German accent in a way that makes it even more shameful. You're like, why do you think these ideas are good? No, that was my Russian accent. I'm sorry.
So true, Jeremy.
Yeah.
So true.
999.
How could you even think of such a thing? How stupid is that? German
thing
culture,
you've ever come up with.
German culture excels at humiliation, let me tell you. So anyway, he said, yeah, that could work. I was like, really? It will? So anyway, he had to do a few modifications for me, because of course my market umbrella wasn't tall enough.
Yeah.
So I had this great idea. I came back, and then the pin didn't go in. Like, I couldn't expand it all the way open. So I needed a new hole for the pin, because the holes were up high, right? And then I needed about a foot extra. So I found this really nice birch log that he had saved for something, but years ago, but never used. And I said, could you measure this? Like, I gave him all my measurements.
Oh, nice.
And then
this is good.
And then he put
trained you well.
He's a precision machinist.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, trained you well.
Yeah, I mean, if I say something is 2 inches and it's 1 1/4, I'm in like,
yeah, right.
They'll just hang me from the nearest tree.
Yeah, do you not know how to measure? And he's like, and why are you coming at me with these customary units? Where's the Freemason units only in this house?
Actually, he can do both.
Oh, wow.
All our building material in Canada is in imperial measurement. 2x4s, right?
Yeah. Well, it's sensible.
It's weird. But anyway, and then he drilled me a little hole a couple inches deep in the stump, and we put it up today.
Nice. And it all worked?
I had to cut a piece of the fabric so it doesn't touch my stovepipe.
Right. Yeah.
Crank that sucker open, and then I just like, okay, Lord.
Yeah.
Here we go. But it's actually much more stable.
You should put an icon of a saint in there to take care of it, to watch it for you, watch over.
Yeah,
for you.
well, Saint Seraphim was in there, but I wasn't sure when I was like humming and hawing about taking it down all through the fall.
All right. And
so I took a bunch of stuff in. I took him in, but I'm going to bring him back out there again.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be good. Well, I will tell you, our garden this year went crazy. This is the best by far garden we've ever had, and this was the first year we had icons in our garden, and I'm just saying, it went bonkers. Cool. My wife got these like Ethiopian icons of Christ and Theotokos, and she put those in the garden, and like the little sculptures, Yeah. Well, I mean, like they're like relief. They're not like a 3D statue. They're just like a carving, basically.
Yeah.
And man, crazy. Yeah, icons in the garden. I'm telling you, it's a good thing. There is a saint who is the saint of gardens. Let me
Oh, really?
Yeah, hold on. I can't remember his name. Please forgive me. But I will pull up we've got an icon of him out in our courtyard at church. And my wife has an icon of him in our garage near the area where she does all the potting. Let's see. Let me go here. Yeah. Oh, Saint Fiacre of Riul. I don't even know. He's a Celtic saint. Well, let me share this with you. I will share my screen. There we go. Share. Oops.
Oh.
So we have this icon outside of our church out in the courtyard where we have
we need to do this
flowers.
guy. We need to do this guy next Tuesday. I want to know.
Okay, I'll write that down.
Yes,
We'll do
please.
Saint Fiacre of Brioul.
I love that icon.
It's a beautiful icon. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
yeah, he's the patron saint of gardens.
Okay, speaking of saints.
Yes, that's why they all came here. We've got 9 people. We were afraid we'd had 0 at first, which this is the first time that's happened.
I thought maybe there was the rapture and we missed it.
Yeah, we didn't know. Yeah, who knows? Maybe World War III broke out. Or,
we were, yeah.
End of the world. Let's see. Okay, so I had my prayer up. Where'd it go? Prayer. There it is. Okay. Illumine our hearts, O Master, who lovest mankind with the pure light of thy divine knowledge. Open the eyes of our mind to the understanding of thy gospel teachings, and plant also in us the fear of thy blessed commandments, the trampling down all carnal desires. We may enter upon a spiritual manner of living, both thinking and doing such things as are well-pleasing unto thee. For thou art the illumination of our souls and bodies, O Christ our God, and unto thee we ascribe glory, together with thy Father who is from everlasting, and thine only good and life-creating Spirit, now and ever, and unto ages of ages. Amen. Okay, now we will pull up the first saint. Is Saint Aidan. Maybe it's Aidan.
Aidan. It's
Aidan. Okay, Saint Aidan. Let me share.
There's an iconographer named Aidan Hart. You must know.
Oh, right. Yeah. He's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Window. This one. Yes. Share this. Okay. Oh, we'll hide. You don't need to see all my notes. We'll hide that. Okay.
Do we
see all my categories?
Do we have a picture?
I can get one.
Yeah.
I don't have one, but I can get one. Let me pull up an icon of Saint Aidan of Ferns.
Oh, by the way, I'm just
reading. Saint Aidan of Linsfern. Forgive me. It is the same guy. He was the Bishop of Ferns.
Okay.
But Saint. Let's see. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, let me share this.
It's okay. I'm sending you topsy turvy.
No, it's all good. Let me. I can do this. Oh, whoops! I didn't mean to. Uh-oh. I removed Shari. Whoopsie. Sorry. Kicked off, man. I am still learning how to be a producer over here.
We switched sides now. That's weird. I'm never on this side.
Oh yeah, that's this.
How did that happen?
Let's fix it. There we go. Oof. Yeah, that's kind of like when you've been not that we've been married, but when you've been married for a while, like when you go, like even when you go to a hotel, you're like, why are you on my side of the bed?
Yeah.
You just kind of get used to being on the side of the bed. Same as the screen here. Okay, so what I was going to do is share this screen. There we go. And if I share that screen, then I can do something magic, because this is the magic fairyland of computers. I can share. Let's open this in a new tab and bring this up. And we can do this. And we can bring this over here, and we can make it a little smaller.
Yeah, look at you.
Right here. And we have an icon of Saint Aidan.
There we go.
There we go.
Nice.
Oh, I'll put it on this side. It'll be easier to see. There we go. But then I can't see my text. Sorry, it's going to be over here.
Yeah, there you go. It's all good.
Okay. Okay.
You're going to have to squeeze it over a little.
There we go. Got it. Saint Aidan. One day as a boy, he kept sheep. Okay, so just so you know, I got this particular version of his life from an interesting collection of the lives of the saints that was put together in like the 1400s, and the person who was collecting the stories he was faithful in collecting the story, but he adds a little bit of commentary along the way where he's just like, yeah, these Celtic guys, they tell some wild tales. So anyway, just so you're aware, this particular hagiographer was a little skeptical, but we'll just share it as it's written. One day as a boy, he kept sheep. 8 wolves approached, and he pitied them. They were manifestly famishing, and he gave them 8 wethers. So a wether is a sheep that has been castrated, which is where the word bellwether comes from, by the way, just in case you were wondering. So,
really?
Yeah, a bellwether being an indicator is the sheep that would have the bell was sometimes a weathered.
Oh, they put the bells on
and
the
it was
weather.
the one that was belled, and then the shepherd would know where they were.
Right.
So the bell, because the herd would follow the bellwether. So a bellwether is like an indicator of things to come, or an indicator of the larger thing. It's because the bellwether would wear a bell. It was a weathered sheep that would wear a bell, and the shepherd knew where they were. So anyway, back to the story. And he gave them 8 wethers, so 8 sheep. As he returned home, driving his flock, his aunt appeared in the distance, a woman with a hard mouth and not disposed to pass over the loss of 8 wethers. So he cried to the Lord, and lo, 8 wethers appeared to take the place of those eaten. He was walking, reading in the fields one day, when a poor stag that should be a new paragraph. That's why that's confusing. Okay, there we go. Well, back to this. He was walking in the fields one day when a poor stag that was being pursued by hunters fell on its knees before him. Aidan placed his book between the horns and continued reading. The hunters drew off, not daring to kill the beast protected by the saint. He and Saint Molas were great friends and resolved to travel, if it might be, together. They set up 2 sticks in the ground and watched which way they should fall. If together, they would be companions. If not, each would go in the direction indicated by the fallen stick. The rod of Molas fell south, that of Aidan north. So they parted. 3 boys were drowned in a tarn, a lake. Aidan was informed of it. He went to the lake and walked on the water till he saw the drowned boys at the bottom. Then he summoned them, and they rose like corks. He gave them to their mothers alive. Whilst he was a disciple of St. David at Menevia, he incurred the anger of David for having left his book in the rain. David ordered him to prostrate himself on the seashore. Aidan obeyed, and David pardoned him, but forgot to tell him to rise. Afterwards, in his monastery, David wondered at the absence of his disciple and inquired where he was. Some told him he had been seen prostrate on the beach. Then he sent, and Aidan was found there. The tide had risen and flowed about him, and yet he would not stir till released by his master. A man was brought to Aidan, born without eyes and nostrils. Sorry if you're reading along, these paragraph breaks do not make sense. I did this in a hurry. So anyway, a man was brought to Aidan, born without eyes and nostrils, his face a blank. Aidan blessed him, when suddenly eyes appeared and nostrils gaped. He was inspired with particular animosity against the Saxons and attended the Britons in their fights and cursed their enemies with the best possible effect. On his way back to Ireland in a little boat, he arrived whilst a fight was going on, and the Irish king was slaughtering a number of pirates who had landed to ravage the land. Aidan began to ring his little handbell, and when the king heard the tinkle wafted over the waves, he desisted from the butchery, for he knew a holy man drew nigh, to whom such bloody acts were distasteful. Aidan was granted land in a lonely district. He was troubled with wolves, but having a compassionate heart, he gave a calf to them one night that belonged to 2 cows. Next day, the cook came to him to say that the cows would not give their milk and lowed and were restless because they had lost their calf. Aidan bade the cook to stoop, and he stroked and blessed his head and bade him to go to the cows and let them lick it well. The cook did so, and the cows were comforted. And, says the biographer, the cows loved that cook like a calf. Aidan fasted on one occasion for 50 days and as many nights. and in return was granted his petition that henceforth whoever should sit in his seat would certainly go to heaven. One day he cursed a rock and split it. A certain Seren had assassinated the king of Leinster. Aidan cursed him that his hand should fall off and not recovered until he had been pardoned by the murdered man. So Seren lay down beside the cairn of the king with crossed hands on his breast. After several nights, the dead man spoke from the sepulchre. Seren, you brute, I forgive you. When dead, a certain paralytic man was healed by rubbing himself with some spittle he collected from the dead lips. This is a fair specimen of the stuff that fills the lives of Irish saints. That was the commentary I was talking about.
Wait, what does it say at the bottom? Saint somebody.
Oh, this is our next saint. Saint.
Oh, I see. Oh, sorry.
That's another spelling of the name. So it's okay. Saint Theophilus, but this is another spelling of his name, Saint Faful.
Okay.
The Theophilus is the Greek. This is the Russian.
I loved all of that. That was.
I did too. Like there's so many wild, crazy stories in here. I was like, I have to share this. This is so good. This is so good. Hey, we got this is nice. Thank you. Someone is helping us pay for StreamYard. God bless you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
New tip from KL. Good job, KL. Thank you. We're grateful for your help. And we've got smiley face. Yay. All right. So that is the first saint of the night, Saint Aidan. May we have his prayers and his intercessions.
Yes.
And now we will talk about Saint Faful or Theophilus. This saint, we'll go over here. Here's an icon of him. So the Kiev Caves were basically a real, like, the spiritual center of the Russian Empire for 500 years, and right up until the Communist Revolution, and then it became a monastery again at the fall of USSR, and then during the Ukraine-Russia war, the government basically reclaimed it and kicked the monks out. So right now it is not being used as a monastery. It's very tragic, but it's a very old monastery. It's been there for 500 years.
Wow. So it's empty now?
I don't know if it's empty or if it's just it was being used for parties, etc. It was being desacralized. So,
oh no.
Yeah. Okay. It's very sad. So yeah, they came and arrested the abbot and then gave all of the monks like a month to leave.
Okay.
So this is Saint Faful. So Father Turbo shared his life earlier this week, and I was very moved by his life, and I love Fools for Christ. And
yeah,
I didn't know Saint. So it's either Saint Theophilus or Saint Faful. And I didn't know of him before this week. But I was very moved by his story. So
cool.
In October 1788, twin boys were born to Andrei and Efrosinya Gorankovsky in the town of Maknovo. Eugene, if you're here, forgive me. I'm sorry. I'm doing my best over here. Near Kiev. The oldest of them was named Foma, and the younger was named Kaliniki. From his infancy, Foma began to display unusual characteristics, and naturally his parents became concerned. He would regularly refuse to drink his mother's milk and was distant when it came to playful interaction with her. Efrosinya began to take this rejection from her son personally and had her heart hardened toward him. She thought that he was possessed by a demon, and one day devised a plan to destroy him once and for all. Efrosinya called her servant and secretly confided in her, telling her to take Foma to the river at the crack of dawn and throw him in it. The servant begged and pleaded with Efrosinya not to make her do such an unthinkable act, but Efrosinya's heart was completely hard, and the servant's pleas fell on deaf ears. In the end, the servant submitted to her. Early one morning, the servant took Foma in her arms and went down to the river. Making the sign of the cross, she dropped Foma in the water. She was not prepared for what would happen next. Foma came up to the surface of the water and floated peacefully to the opposite bank, and was cast onto dry land. God had clearly saved the child from drowning. She couldn't believe what she had just witnessed and quickly crossed the river, picking Foma up in her arms. The child was sound asleep. Fearing the wrath of Ephrosinia, she decided to quickly put an end to the task at hand, and without thinking, she threw Foma in the river again. Again, she witnessed God's providence in the life of Foma as the waves carried the child to a small island in the river and cast him once more onto dry land. Terrified by such an undeniable miracle, she took the child in her arms and returned to Ephrosinia, saying, "You can kill me if you want to, but I will not drown an innocent child. God himself, by a miracle, is saving his life, and we will suffer for our cruel murder." Again, her words fell on deaf ears, and determined to rid herself of Foma for good, Ephrosinia took the baby from the frightened servant girl and set out for the river. On her way down to the river, she came to a mill that was near their house. Since it was still early with no one around, Ephrosinia walked up to it, found a good place, and threw Foma to crush him under the wheel itself. Thinking she had accomplished her mission, she began to walk away peacefully, when suddenly the millstone stopped. The pressure of the water caused a tremendous roar, and Ephrosinia fled with fear. When the miller heard the uproar, he ran outside to see what all the commotion was. The wheels shook violently from the tremendous amount of pressure of the water pouring onto them. The miller came out and saw the baby floating in the whirlpool caused by the rushing water, and as soon as he removed the child from the water, the wheels began to turn again. The servant had followed Ephrosinia to the mill, and when she saw this third miracle, she began to weep bitterly. She came to the miller and told him everything she had seen. Fearing the fate of the child in the hands of such a cruel and heartless mother, the miller returned Foma to his father, Andrei, either way. The heartbroken father wanted the best for his son and decided to put Foma in the care of a wet nurse. The wet nurse proved to be a good woman. She cared for Foma as if he were her own son and gave daily reports to the father. Several months had passed, and Foma's father began to feel that his time on earth was drawing to a close. Concerned for the well-being of Foma, he spoke with the good miller and asked him to care for the child. The miller was happy to care for Foma, seeing it as a blessing from God. When the story of these miracles spread across the region, a wealthy peasant from the town of Moknovo begged the miller to let him care for the child. "I have no children, and I need an heir to all I possess," pleaded the wealthy peasant. The miller, wanting Foma to have the happiness of living under the shelter of a wealthy man, gave him over to the care of the peasant, who cared for him and provided for his every need. Foma grew up a foster child as he moved from one place to another, never really able to get too comfortable in any one place. Foma was beginning to take up the cross of him who, during his life on earth, did not have a place to lay his head. Even as a child, he wasn't interested in the same things as other children of his age group. Most of the time, instead of playing, he would go sit by himself somewhere as if in deep meditation. From an early age, he began praying and fasting. He would pray for God to soften his mother's heart toward him. He loved God's church dearly and would never miss a single service. People began to notice that Foma was definitely an extraordinary and special child. One day, Foma learned that his mother had been struck with a terminal illness, and in pity for her, he decided to visit her. Foma's prayers for his mother were answered by God because her heart had become tender toward him, and sobbing bitterly, she begged his forgiveness. She pressed him tightly against her maternal breast, and making the sign of the cross upon him, she gave her spirit up to the Lord. Foma closed her eyes with his own hands and handed over the body of his mother for burial. Foma learned to read and write and excelled in his studies. However, when the time came, he had no interest in continuing on in higher education. Foma spent more and more time at church, choosing to gain a different type of wisdom than the world was offering. He began to think about the monastic life and sought to enter a monastery. In 1812, Foma entered the Kiev monastery as a novice. There he fulfilled various obediences, including mixing dough and baking bread. He also cooked in the kitchen and helped out in the hospital as an assistant. He would eventually become the sacristan and bell ringer. The abbot of the monastery took notice that Foma had tremendous fervor for spiritual podvigs or struggles and tonsured him a monk on December 11th, 1821. So he was a novice for 9 years. At the time of his tonsure, Foma was renamed Theodoret. Less than a year later, on September 30th, 1822, Theodoret was elevated to the rank of hierodeacon, or a deacon monk. According to his new position, he began to receive a small income, but he increased his fasting and gave all of his money to the needy. What is it to me, this flesh and blood, which one day will turn to dust, Theodoret would say, and then would redouble his fasting. He became a servant to everyone around him, even fulfilling the obediences of those in the lowest order, becoming like a bought slave. On February 6th, 1827, Theodoret was ordained hieromonk, or a priest monk, and simultaneously appointed steward of the Brodsky monastery. This was a great honor, and the position was desired by many. It was also a very solicitous position, however, and Theodoret immediately requested to be removed from the stewardship and refused all obediences. He asked to be moved to the caves so that he could focus only on prayer and fasting, but was denied his request. After this, he sought an even deeper asceticism and took upon himself the great podvig of "Fool for Christ's sake." His spiritual strength increased daily, and having achieved the highest podvig of monastic life, he was tonsured with the great schema on December 9th, 1834, and was renamed Faful. The great schema is an image of bodily death and struggling upward to ascend into eternity. There he's wearing the great schema habit. Starets Faful walked a very narrow and sorrowful path so that he could be free from the everyday passions of the world. He was always seen with his eyes lowered to the ground, walking peacefully from his cell to the church. From the time he was young, he never missed a single service. Faful was always seen with a basket full of provisions for the needy and a spiritual psalter. He placed a coffin in his cell, but he didn't lie in it as would the ancient ascetics of piety. Instead, he filled it with various provisions and dishes to be given away to those in need. Even though God saw his righteousness, Faful was so dead to this world that even the monks in his lavra thought his otherworldly behavior was odd. He never buttoned his monastic robe and always left it dirty and stained with dough and oil from cooking. He would sometimes run into the church and push people aside, and falling to his knees, he would pray very loudly, then get up and run out of the church again. When it was Faful's turn to read the Psalter in the church, he would read so that no one could hear him, and the monks would remark to him, "Read more loudly, Father." Then the starets would read even quieter, sometimes shutting the book and leaving the other monks at the kleros in confusion. Faful would often go and kneel upon a large tree stump for whole days, constantly bewailing the corruption of the times and praying for the forgiveness of the sinful world. The more Faful's spirit was purified in his struggles, the more slovenly he was dressed. The more he became like an angel, the more dead to this world and even to his lavra he became. Faful's behavior was so set apart from the world that the monks who thought he was odd would even play jokes on him. Once, while in church, the saint left his beloved Psalter, which he had memorized, and went outside to pray and walk through the graveyard during the service. Seeing this, one of the monks decided to play a cruel trick on the starets and hide his Psalter from him. When Faful came back in the church, he did not even walk back to where he had left the Psalter, but walked right up to the monk who had hidden it in his pocket and said to him, "Oh, elder, you must die tomorrow, and you play evil tricks today. Woe unto you." As the saint had said, so it happened, and the elderly monk died the next morning. God saw Faful's heart and illumined him with heavenly wisdom and discernment. He was able to accurately predict events of the visible world as well as the secret things in people's hearts. With this gift, he was able to lead countless people to repentance and reconciliation with the Savior. In fact, at the hour of his death, when it was time to give his spirit up to the Lord, he called for a box to be placed in and sent one of his cellmates to the superior of the hermitage to inform him that Theophil has demised. Toll the bell. At the moment of blessed Theophil's repose, one of his cellmates named Dmitri witnessed the roof of the cell rise up and the blue sky reaching down as if to receive the holy soul of the dying righteous one. Blessed Theophil yielded his spirit up to the Lord, and instantly the room returned to normal. When the news of blessed Theophil's repose spread, it brought great crowds to the hermitage. People just wanting to see or touch the blessed one last time came from all over the region. The Storet's elder's coffin was completely covered with candles on all sides by his numerous followers. Blessed Theophil performed numerous miracles during his life and continues to perform miracles to this day. There are so many, in fact, that one could probably write a book just on the miracles performed by God through Blessed Theophil. May we have the prayers of Saint Theophil. Then there's an account of miracles that he has performed. Oh, now we've gone recursive.
Woo!
Whoa.
Timelessness. Oh, those were great. Thank you, Jeremy.
You're welcome.
You know, I don't know. I don't think I read it here. A friend of mine sent me a Wendell Berry poem that I read on Rigel's stream last week. And again, like I said there, that it reminded me of a Fools for Christ.
Mm.
So I'm going to read it to you because it's, and just keep Saint Theophil in mind. So let me see here. Oh, I need some glasses.
I'll pull up his icon.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Not that. This and this and this and this and that. And there we go. Okay.
Nice. I like that. I am done. Okay, so this is Wendell Berry. I am done with apologies. If contrariness is my inheritance and destiny, so be it. If it is my mission to go in at exits and come out at entrances, so be it. I have planted by the stars in defiance of the experts, and tilled somewhat by incantation and by singing, and reaped, as I knew, by luck and heaven's favor, in spite of the best advice. If I have been caught so often laughing at funerals, that was because I knew the dead were already slipping away, preparing a comeback, and can I help it? And if at weddings I have gritted and gnashed my teeth, it was because I knew where the bridegroom had sunk his manhood, and knew it would not be resurrected by a piece of cake. Dance, they told me, and I stood still. And while they stood quiet in line at the gate of the kingdom, I danced. Pray, they said, and I laughed, covering myself in the earth's brightnesses, and then stole off gray in the midst of a revel, and prayed like an orphan. When they said, I know my Redeemer liveth, I told them he is dead. And when they told me God is dead, I answered, he goes fishing every day in the Kentucky River. I see him often. When they asked me, would I like to contribute, I said no. And when they had collected more than they needed, I gave them as much as I had. And when they asked me to join them, I wouldn't, and then went off by myself and did more than they would have asked. Well, then, they said, go and organize the International Brotherhood of Contraries. And I said, did you finish killing everybody who was against peace? So be it. Going against men, I have heard at times a deep harmony thrumming in the mixture. And when they ask me what I say, I don't know. It is not the only or the easiest way to come to the truth. It is one way.
This is good.
Right?
It reminded me of the quote. from St. Gregory of Nyssa, the one that I read earlier. The mind ascends to God not through the accumulation of knowledge, but through the letting go of all that it knows.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And here too, I think he's also talking about forgetting about what other people think of you.
Yeah, and he says, it's so good, he says, going against men, I have heard at times a deep harmony thrumming in the mixture.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, a friend sent that to me not too long ago, and I just loved it.
Yeah, it's good.
And then I realized that it's very much, like I thought of the movie The Island that you sent me.
Mm-hmm.
And how that monk who was the fool for Christ was reminding the other monks of their, dare I say, at times false piety, self-righteousness, and things like that.
Right. Right. They're vainglory.
By being actually not pious or not righteous, right? Yeah. Like when he goes into the liturgy, I use the example of when he goes into the liturgy and he faces the wrong direction.
Yeah.
It's like sacrilege in a sense, right?
Yes.
But that's that deep harmony that thrums in the mixture. Because they go and turn him.
Pointing. Did you notice where he's pointing?
No, I didn't.
He's pointing to where the fire's going to be later.
Oh, wow.
He's bowing to the fire. He's trying to draw their attention. Right.
But at the same time, their lack of attention, which is what we talked about in the beginning there, attend.
Yeah. Right.
Their lack of attention is I don't know. You know what I mean? There is, like in that movie anyway, the abbot of that monastery has to go through a very humbling experience. That monk, that older, monk that seems to be in charge of everything all the time.
Yeah.
He's constantly annoyed with this fool for Christ in the movie, right?
Right.
He just can't handle him anymore.
Yeah.
And when this happens to these monks, they're humbled, but like, they see themselves reflected back. They see who they actually are, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
he reveals the parts of them that still need to repent.
And that's that deep harmony thrumming in the mixture. That's what the fool for Christ does with his contrariness, right? Yeah. Is he forces people to see, it's kind of like, where was I talking about this recently? Was I talking to you about the fact that my husband wouldn't pray with me when we first got married? Or like do the devotion thing?
Yeah. And
I said something like, you can kick and scream and throw tantrums and get sick and leave and come back. And, and he's not going to do it. Right. It's not happening. And in the end, I just, all I'm seeing is me, and I'm an asshole. Right. I went through the gamut of emotion, but really I was just trying to get my own way. It had nothing to do with him.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I was talking with someone close to me recently. They had a relative who came and stayed with them for a little while, and it was very difficult. And I don't want to be too specific because
sure.
I mean, this person won't listen to this probably, but regardless, it was kind of a private conversation that we shared. But it was really, they had a relative come stay with them who was in a bad way and needed a place to stay for a while. But this person had just had a stroke a few months ago and was still recovering, and so it was difficult for her to, she had some issues, and everything that came to her mind came out of her mouth, so she was constantly talking and loudly. And I was like, Mom, you lived with me. Like, you should know how to handle this. Just ignore it. It's all good. But anyway, it lasted for a while, and it was very difficult. And I guess I revealed it. It was my mom. My mom was talking, and she had a friend who comes stay with her. Sorry. So anyway,
okay.
she had a relative come and stay, and it was difficult, but it was, I was just telling her, it was like, and I'll turn it back to my own story.
Yeah.
Where it was when my father-in-law came to live with me, and it was very difficult to live with. And what I realized was that the parts that had the difficulty with him were the parts of me that needed to die. He was just revealing those to me.
Yeah.
He was brought to me as a teacher to reveal those parts of me that needed to die, where it's like, you can't, you can't, you think you got to figure it out, but there's some parts of you. And here's the thing too, why it's very difficult to be a hermit and why only certain monks are given the permission. Most people need interactions with other people around them in order for these parts to be revealed to them that they then realize they need to repent of. Right. These dark parts of you come out in response to other people being annoying. And when you're living by yourself in a cave, there's no one there to
right. Yeah.
To bring
no
these
iron
out,
sharpening iron. No iron sharpening iron.
Yeah. So then the angels start showing up and the demons start showing up and doing it instead. So that's why it's a little more intense. But yeah, no, it's just, once I kind of gained that understanding of that's what was happening, it's not easy, it's not fun. I'm not saying that, but it's easier to contextualize the difficulty and to realize that the problem is not with this other person and they're not going to change. The problem is with me. And I, through the grace of God, hopefully I can change and get over myself, basically, is what I'm usually being called to do. Right. It's like, my way is not the highway.
It's interesting. I've been in conversation with Marcus Shira, who is an economics professor now, and wrote his dissertation on the function of monasticism in, I don't know exactly, I can't remember the title of his dissertation. I'm sorry, Marcus, if you hear this. But it has to do with the okay, I don't know the technical terms for these, so I'm not even going to try to fake it. But what I remember the most from reading it was that when Constantinople became Christian, that's when the Desert Fathers became a thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they had, up to that point, Christianity had suffered persecution, and now all of a sudden the persecution was over, and the emperor was Christian, and everyone was Christian. And then people started heading into the desert. Monks started going into the desert.
Yeah.
Desert mothers and fathers, right?
Yeah.
And he proposes that they acted as a neutral zone for various reasons. Like, first of all, because there was no actual persecution happening in the kingdom, they could go out and suffer in the desert, right? Rather than suffer at the hands of the Roman emperor or whatever.
Right.
And then the other thing was that people would go to them for counsel, regular folks and people in power, right?
Yeah, right.
And they were removed from politics. They were removed from society.
Yeah.
And so they could be trusted. There was a commodity there of trust.
Yeah.
And
even church hierarchy would go out for counsel too.
Right. And and they had spiritual mothers and fathers to guide them along as well, right? Like they weren't just like random guys out there. But anyways, Marcus did I think I mentioned it before. I really enjoyed it. The last video that he did on his channel.
I did watch it, by the way.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I actually
I can't remember what it's called now. But we had a conversation a little bit about it. And one of the things that I mentioned to him was that there are monks and then there are hermits, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, hermits have to have permission to become hermits. And not all monks are going to be hermits. But what's really interesting about hermits is that a hermit is not interested in social hierarchy. Otherwise, they wouldn't be hermits.
Right. Right. Yeah. They don't know. Not only are they not interested in it, they run from it.
Exactly. Like it doesn't mean anything to them. It's actually, I would say they see it as a way to reinforce a false sense of who you actually are.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. It's a trap.
Right. And, Marcus said that the early fathers had to deal with renegade hermits because there was, guys out there that were, fleecing people basically, right? Calling themselves hermits and stuff. But anyway, I just, my patron saint is Saint Seraphim. He was a hermit. That's also partially why, I chose Saint Seraphim because he lived in the woods and he had a bear, but he was also a hermit. That matters to me personally. And I'm not saying I'm a hermit, but I could be a hermit. I really could. Because that's the one thing that I don't like either is social hierarchies.
Yeah.
Like I really despise them. I don't understand them. I don't know why people compete with each other. Most competition is over status, right, of some kind or another.
Yeah.
And that all has to do with social hierarchy. Anyways, it's just, to me, it's a really fascinating thing to think about because like Marcus helped me understand that it's not just a personal decision. It actually serves. Oh, there's Marcus. Marcus, come here. Jump in. I put there you are. There he is. See? He's watching. You little stinker.
Vagabonds specifically banned in St. Benedict's rule. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and look here, I dropped a link if you want to jump in and talk more about this, Marcus, because this is just so fascinating to me. I don't know if you have time, but I hope you do. What I wanted to say, and
go ahead,
I'm just going to butcher all of Marcus's thoughts. But what I find, what Marcus helped me to understand better was that, how monks talk about, that they're in the monastery, they're praying, and it's for the life of the world. Well, if you think about that phrase, like for the, monasticism is for the life of the world, and then take into consideration what Marcus is talking about. Holy cow. It is for the life of the world. If people are going to them for counsel, they're literally moving mountains.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, it's like a hidden preservation. It's like a wildlife preservation. So that they, right. It's kind of the same idea where there's like the monks are just allowed to live the pure spiritual life in the context of the scriptures without the political or worldly influence, and as a result they're able to better preserve the traditions and then act as feedback. Something else I had mentioned to Marcus that I think is really important is this idea that the monasteries could withdraw their consent or their support of a bishop, right? Like if the bishop is starting to go astray, then they won't commemorate the bishop in their liturgy. And that's a powerful vote, right?
Yeah.
When the monastics aren't willing to be behind you anymore, that's that causes some self-reflection, hopefully, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like, that's something that you really need to think about where
Totally.
you're headed,
Yeah.
So that's that's grown to be a very powerful indicator in the life of the church on the direction, and on it's like a it's a feedback loop, it's the monastics are a bellwether, you could say. Little throwback.
Yeah, and I mean, not to minimize or reduce down or anything like that, but there he is. Cool. Hey.
I literally opened the video as soon as you started talking about that. So like 2 minutes ago, I opened the video.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. I'm so glad though, because that, like that is just all of the stuff that you've shared with me, Marcus, over the years about this. Monasticism has always been really important to me, but it's a personal thing. Like I didn't have any knowledge, about the things that you pointed out to me beforehand. I just knew it was good and right. And yeah, you solidified it for me, right? Yeah, anyway. Do you have any thoughts about what we said?
Yeah, well, I guess the way that I've been thinking about it, or the way that I've modeled it for an economics context, is also has weaknesses. And the main one is when I was working on it, there was a group of Catholic research economists or something, asked I was going to present it for them, and they asked a historian to do some commentary on it. And I guess he's specialized in Desert Fathers and stuff like that. And one thing that he said was that he brought it to another economist to help him understand what the economics was. And then he said the one thing that's missing is that the monks themselves are not only, it's not just that they're like people who have separated themselves so that they're disentangled from social hierarchies, so you can kind of trust what they say, but they also learn something when they're out there, right? They actually gain something that you can't get anywhere else.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas the way that I was thinking of it, which is still valid, but it's only a portion of the story, is just something like people who, a bishop, say, who's involved in the world, right? They might be a completely honest and virtuous person, but the fact that they're in the world obscures, the way that people trust what they say. They could be speaking 100% gospel truth, but the fact that sometimes they meet with the emperor or some rich patrician in the city, people go, oh, I'm not really sure I trust what he's saying, right? Whereas a monastic, since they live independently and they have their own farm, or they have their own means of whatever small amount of food they're going to have, you trust that what they say is honest, even if it might be false, right? But what he was saying was that's so hard to capture, and this is a problem in general for economics to capture, is how knowledge is generated, or how people actually learn things. And there's something about that environment. The desert environment is like laboratory conditions for the soul. That's basically what I took out of it. The way that they talk about it elsewhere too.
Yeah.
Well, and something, people bring this up occasionally. By the way, hello, Marcus. It's nice to see you. Hey,
Jeremy, good to see you.
I haven't talked in a while. But people bring up too the fact that the normative path for people is to get married and have kids and have a family. And even if you can't have kids, it's still a normative path to have kids. Like being a monastic is kind of a spiritual calling, and it generally means that for whatever reason you didn't follow, you couldn't follow the normative path, whether that's because you're crazy or because you're pious, and it's really hard to discern the difference between those two.
Yeah.
For sometimes, especially for spiritually new people, like meeting a holy person can feel a lot like meeting a crazy person. I mean, we heard that tonight with the story of the the fool for Christ, and I guess what I'm saying is like another element to this that adds to what you're talking about, I think, Marcus, is that the kind of the mystery, or the when you go out to somebody, you don't, most of us lack discernment to a degree, and so we go out and we're listening to this person, but we don't really know if they're crazy or if they're very holy, because they're in an environment where those two look the same. And in order to live in that environment, they have to be both a little bit. They didn't follow the normative path just for the fact that they're out there.
The one detail in Lord of the Rings that I'm not sure how many people pick up on, I don't know if it's intentional or not, is that in the early phase, while they're walking towards Bree, they're trying to avoid the Black Riders, right? And then the person that they encounter in the inn that's actually going to save them is wearing also a dark hood that they can't identify who it is, Strider, right? So there's something about when you're venturing out into territories that you are not familiar with, good and bad look the same, right? You can't identify the difference. And so there's something I really want to be able to figure out. I understand a lot of, I think, in both the Pageau brothers, the sense of the margin and how that works, but I don't really understand why Pageau, and like the way you're talking about, puts the monk at the margin. I'm not exactly sure why that's the case. I understand in a physical sense that they're leaving the center of earthly society, but there's some sense in which they're establishing another center. So sometimes they're referred to as being part of a higher center, but still being the margin. It's hard for me to wrap my head around that.
Well, I think of someone who lives on the border, like a border guard, right, for a kingdom, speaks both languages. And you see this as well with like people who work in drug enforcement, people who are narcs, basically. People who work in drug law enforcement look like criminals. They have tattoos and long hair, and they say all the things, and they look the part because they're almost the same. And I mean, this is the whole Joker and Batman dynamic, right? Where how much different are they? And I think that's where things get a little blurry. And I'm not saying monks are demons, but I'm saying monks are at the edge of society, and they're staring into the abyss, and they learn a little bit about both languages, I think, as a result, where they're at the edge where there's not the society around them giving them feedback. There's not a lot of people or any people around them giving them feedback, which is a huge feedback system for sanity, right? Like, this is why, when we put people in solitary confinement, that's like the worst punishment. So anyway, that's kind of where, like,
you learn animal languages is what you're saying, basically.
You're well, yes, you're learning both. You're learning up and down, right? You're going down to go up. And yeah, I think, there's a reason why the monks generally meet demons before they meet angels. And I think it has to be out. It has to do with being out on the border, where you have to learn both languages, Yeah. You have to learn the language of the kingdom and the language of the villains.
What's partially confusing me, though, is that when we say they're out on the border, that border is defined between, I guess, human centers, like a human city or something like that. Whereas in that story, where's God's city? Where is that center relative to all of these other centers and borders, I guess?
Can I just want to ask Jeremy, if we did a fair use of one of Jonathan Pageau's videos, would we be okay?
What seems to happen, it depends. It just depends on the video. Sometimes a copyright owner has like a blanket, like, don't use my stuff. And if that's the case, we just get a little alert, and it's like, hey, this isn't a copyright strike. You just need to pull that out if you want to get monetized. And usually that it helps if you like talk over it. Like, if you play a whole video, then it's more likely that you get struck. But anyway.
Yeah, I wasn't going to plan to play the whole video, but
if you want to play a piece of it, yeah, that should be fine.
Okay, well, you guys keep talking, and I'll figure this out.
I was going to share it's not quite related, but I did want to share this meme because I think it's really funny. And it's related to something we were talking a little bit earlier. Welcome, you joined. This is Father Turbo, by the way.
Yes.
Welcome, you joined Orthodoxy because of all the problems in the world. Glory to God. You'll soon find out that the problem is you.
I got to meet him, by the way.
Oh, really?
Briefly in the church I went to, and then I was baptized in Virginia. They run Doxicon every year, which is like the Orthodox sci-fi fantasy convention. He was the speaker. He was really cool to talk to.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I've talked to either of you recently, in that I now live on the East Coast. I was in California all of last year when I would have met you guys at Northwestern. Now I'm on the East Coast. I have a job at Eastern University teaching economics. So
that's cool.
I can't stay too long because I have to teach tomorrow at 8 a.m.
Okay, let me just see if we can look at this really quick here. I think at least you could go back and watch the whole thing. It's only a clip anyways. It's a clip.
The Rahab symbolically plays some role as a monster or cherub. Joshua 12:15, she lived on the wall of Jericho at the border between the Hebrews on one side and their enemies on the other. To escape from the enemies, the Hebrew passed through her room on the wall over the side and back down to their own people. And so, yes, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. She plays the role of confusion, because one of the things, mixture, right? Prostitutes are a mixture. Like they just, I mean, I don't want to be too explicit, but they have mixed seed. You know, they mix seed together, and therefore they don't have a clear. You can think like their children would be confused because they wouldn't know who their father is. They wouldn't know what is their lineage, and so they are an image of this kind of confusion. But in terms of the story, you can also see how Rahab is also, for that reason, you could say, is also someone who has very little stake in the city. You know, so this is something that is true, obviously, still today. You know, people who are on the margins, let's say even prostitutes in our world now, they have little stake in the cohesion of the city. You know, they don't have power. They don't have any, because also she's not married, and she's just this place of mixture. Where is her allegiance? You know, ultimately her allegiance is to whoever pays her. And
okay, I don't want to
Oh.
cause any problems, but you can go back and watch that. It's new. I watched it this morning.
Yeah, so he says she has no allegiance, but then right at the end he says she has allegiance to whoever pays her, I suppose. But so what he means is that she has no loyalty to any particular state, right?
Yeah, he expands on that. He expands on that idea. But it's really interesting because she literally lives in the wall.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She lives in the wall.
There's a great story. So he talks sometimes about certain cultures being border cultures, and I'm Armenian. I'm half Armenian. So I'm thinking about writing about Armenia as like the quintessential border culture for many, many years between different civilizations, different empires. It's a border between them, right? And one story that you just read the stuff and you find it and you're like, this is perfect. When the Crusaders were coming in to take Antioch, they approached basically one of the towers, and the guard in that tower was an Armenian who had converted to Islam, who they persuade to open the gate for them or something like that, right? So he's already an Armenian, so he's already an outsider on the Arab culture, and then he's a convert to Islam, so he's already an outsider on Armenian culture and on them.
Right.
Since he's the Armenian among the Muslims, he's the one that can flip the gate, or he's the one that's on the, and literally we call them and I really want to figure this out, because in economics, marginalism, Jeremy, you'd know this too, marginalism or marginal analysis is a huge part of study, in that when you're studying someone's choice, you're always studying them analyzing the next best thing, or how they interact with the thing that's immediately outside of them, right? Instead of just some sort of internal logic or internal volume. So choices always occur at margins. That's like a universal law in economics, and it has all this technical mathematical meaning, or almost like logical conceptual meaning, but I really don't know how it relates to this more metaphysical symbolic sense of the margin. But yeah, but I saw that, Ezekiel. I will
Zeke says, my favorite quote in regards to societal margins is from the movie Kingdom of Heaven. Go to the place where they start speaking Italian and keep going when it turns into something else. Yeah, well, I'm just, I think that the Fool for Christ is about as far as you can get, as far as margins goes, right? Like that's the margin between sane and insane. And I find the fools for Christ who live within monasteries to be the most interesting. Mm-hmm. Because what they're doing, I think, is that they're like I said to you, Marcus, in that exchange that we had, that even the monastery can be corrupted because of hierarchy, right? And so people start competing with each other and, performing so they can get up the ladder. But the hermit says, pff, and he leaves because he's not interested. Like that's there are people like this. And I think in pagan culture, they were shaman, right? And they were they were the people that others in the society really wanted to speak to, because they were so detached from normal human societal cultural structures. Like they lived alone, right? And then you got the fool on top of it. So and the fool can live within the monastery. He doesn't have to be outside of it. Like he doesn't have to be a hermit, right? Most hermits weren't fools, actually, because who are they going to fool? Themselves,
right?
But so they're even more removed.
Well, and Aristotle said you have to be insane to not live in the city, right? He said the only people who live in the wilderness are.
What does that say about me?
Yeah, they're either being cared for by demons or angels. There's no way that you can live in the wilderness on your own, right? Like you can't. Like that's just how he saw it, because of the interconnectedness of the culture was seen as like essential for being, and to go out was like, I think, even more scandalous for them. Now we just have nowhere you can go to where we don't have these lands anymore. Like you can't go out, now 14 days in the national forest and then the ranger shows up, right? Like there's no land between, like the borders touch each other. You can't go between, you can't go out of the border. You can't go out of the
I've been thinking about the extent to which people in my generation think of exploration as like going deeper and deeper on the internet as a form of exploration. Yeah. In that that's the kind of thing that you like hear about and you tell people, so you're like, oh, there's this weird website, or there's this group of people online that do this or that. I can't even believe it, right? And even those people only interact with each other online, right?
Yeah. I found the iceberg meme and I'm working my way down.
Yeah.
Well, and what's crazy too is that in our time, because there's no wasteland, there's no wilderness, all of the crazy people now live downtown.
No.
All the people who used to go out, now those are the ones you run into downtown. And you're like,
the desert
time we live in.
Does that have something to do with like Pageau saying you can't make the fringe the center? Because literally they live in the center of the town. Most of
them. There is no fringe anymore. There's nowhere to go where you can get out of you can't get out of the hierarchy anymore. You can't get and then the normal
folks have to move because they can't live.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want to have to play hopscotch over human feces, right?
So that's what I've been curious about with what you were saying earlier, Shari, in that the monastery itself can become corrupt. So what the process that happens as history goes on is that in one generation, say a group of monastics, either they're hermits or they join communities, they move out to the fringe of their relative society. But then since their way of life is establishing something, and it's the only stable point, let's say after the fall of the Roman Empire in Western Europe, it's the only stable point, that's actually where people go and start to move to, because the monastery becomes a center of life, and it becomes a provider of justice and secure some limited sense of security and things like that. And then once that happens, they start to become the center, and it's no longer a good place for monastic life. So the next generation of monastics moves another
further out,
and they keep going out and out and out. And one thing that happens in Western Europe, though, that doesn't happen in the East, and I'm trying to develop a theory of why, is that in Western Europe, one of the ways that they try to anchor the remoteness of the monastery, so the monastery is still among where people live, right? But we anchor its separateness from everyone else by how strictly we adhere to this rule. So the rule of St. Benedict becomes very popular in the West, whereas it doesn't in the East. And I think partly the reason for that is because in the West, it was actually harder to escape the authorities, not because the authority was not under a single empire, because there were so many small warlords, and it was harder for you as a single monastery to stay far away from where you needed someone for protection. So each monastery actually needed someone to protect them, or else they would just be killed. So in order to prove, like if someone shows up at this monastery, they go, well, here's the monastery, but here's the castle right next to it. So I clearly don't trust the people in this monastery because they're actually being run by the people in this castle. So what I do is I measure them against this rule, or I measure, are they actually conforming to the standards which they said they're going to conform to? And these standards, St. Benedict's rule, are kept all over Europe in some form. Right. So it's like a pseudo constitutional sort of thing, which then becomes the dominant sort of political discourse for the West all the way until today. Right. In that we're always trying to articulate our ideals as good as we can with words, and then hold everyone to those words. Right. So that's an advantage in that you can sort of anchor the ideal in a set of words at one point in time. But it's also a weakness because the words can't contain everything that you need to actually articulate. Right. So then you get this sort of cycle over time where
then you end up with tons of canon law.
Yes. Yeah. In the West.
Lots of words.
Yeah.
Right. Tons and tons of words, you know?
I have to say, I have to do this comparison, and forgive me to my stepdaughter. I love her so much, but I shared with her a poem from so the day after she shared the St. Thomas Aquinas poem with me, I was reading Hymns on Paradise, and I shared with her this little passage from Hymns on Paradise about exactly what she was pointing at. It was like the apophatic, like, you know, don't think that God is, you know, isn't beautiful just because he's described in words. The words are him condescending to you to try to lift you up to where he is so you can experience him, but don't get distracted by the words, basically. And, you know, he says it in a very beautiful, poetic way. And she sends me like 3 chapters of St. Thomas Aquinas saying the same thing in very abstract philosophical conjurings, you know, and it was just like it was to me it really it was indicative of the move from the poetics of Plato to the heuristic of Aristotle, where the word is the thing. And let's just make more words, you know.
Wouldn't it have been novel? Like St. Thomas would have been novel in his time, right? For being so articulate about these ideas. But we're weary of that, right? Like we've taken that style of communication to its ultimate end.
Yeah.
And we've abstracted everything so far out now. You know, like I've been thinking also about this idea of phronema. What is phronema? I know it's the mind of the fathers, and it's what, you know, the Orthodox Church wants you to acquire, but what does that mean, right? And I thought about it, and I thought, you know what? It's symbolic thinking. It's the ancient way of understanding things that are written down, like you were saying, the Psalms are poetry.
Yeah.
Poetry is symbolic thinking.
Yeah.
It's symbolos. It's when things are thrown together, which I don't know why nobody gets as excited about this as me, but it's incarnational. It's
Right.
George MacDonald calls it poetic relations. She read from poetic diction, right? It's that same idea. Like this is where Barfield says breath, wind, and spirit was one word in Greek, pneuma.
Right.
And so when you said pneuma, it meant all of those things, which means if you're walking down a path in the woods and the wind hits your face, it's all of those things.
Yeah.
It's God's breath, it's wind, and it's spirit. Could be your aunt, could be your uncle, could be your grandmother, could be God, could be the Holy Spirit, like who knows, but it's spirit, right? And for us, it's always just one flat thing, it's thermodynamics. That's what it is,
Yeah.
And so phronema is this ability to think like that. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's not to think in terms of theology, because here's the deal. If you really think about the fathers, none of them really agree with each other. So what do they have in common? What they have in common is a symbolic way of understanding the scriptures and the world around them. It's incarnational.
Yeah.
Well,
right?
what I'm thinking, the advantage that I think the Aquinas or diction or clear, consistent rules, rationality form of presenting a set of ideas has to do with the environment that they're in, which is much more politically chaotic.
Right.
And many other ideas are going on. So another thing that gets brought up is that a lot of the penitential rules and the really strict forms of rigorous Christianity existed in Ireland, where who knows what was going on, right? Who knows who was in charge and what kind of pagan spirits or kings or whatever were fooling around, right? And so it's a way of saying, when everything else, it's actually similar to the monastic rule in a sense, or the monastic way of life, in that you move yourself out into harsh conditions so that you can stabilize one thing and then be safer, I guess, in your spiritual journey. What the rule does, and this is sort of the larger context of the video that I sent you guys about different forms of church governance, is when a lot of other things are shifting around, when I don't know who to trust, if I get the rule strict and I can stick to the rule, right, then I know that I can trust the other people following this rule. And it does constrain us. It does mean that we can't be sort of as flexible and breathe, in a sense, with these ideas. But in a situation where we're worried that a leader or some other kind of spirit or something that's just slightly vaguer is going to lead us in the wrong direction because someone's going to take advantage of us, then we stick to these rules, right? And the idea of a logical argument that no one can assail, that's useful in that kind of situation. And so I think that's why we find it so useful, or at least that's why that strategy was so strong for the last 100 years of apologetics, I guess, is because we felt that there were so many things at stake that we needed to anchor something in words. And probably that strategy is useful in a number of occasions, but it can't be the foundation. That's where people make a mistake, is in making it the foundation of their faith.
Well, the problem I have with it, Marcus, and I don't know if you've thought about this, but the problem I have with that, with the propositional, somewhat, how would you say that? Like, you think that the propositional is going to put everyone on the same page. The problem with it is getting your meaning across.
Yeah.
That's the problem. We talk and talk and talk to each other, and then we say things like, do you know what I mean? Because
And the answer is usually no.
when I'm talking to you, you're thinking at the same time.
Yeah.
You might be thinking of a response. You might be thinking of an example. You might be thinking of something to compare what I'm saying to. So you're not entirely listening, actually. I know I'm not always listening. And so there's that problem. But then you also have different definitions for words.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, you could call it baggage.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the other thing. We got emotional trauma attached to everything, right?
Right.
So, yeah, meaning is that it's the most difficult thing to get across to the other person, which is why for me, propositional language fails. But if you use poetry, which is imagery, it's essentially, that's what it is. It's iconography, right? Iconography is poetry, is imagery, is right.
Yeah.
Then, like George MacDonald says, it doesn't matter what it means. Your meaning might be superior to mine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
You know, we just my mom teaches at a small classical school. She teaches physics, and she's been sitting in on the history classes, which are run by an Orthodox guy that actually teaches at the same school I do. And for their history class, he had them read George MacDonald at the beginning of the history class. I'm not even sure why, but anyway, so my mom just read that passage to me today, the fantastic imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So again, that's exactly where he talks about that. Like literally 3 hours ago.
Is that Jordan Daniel Wood? Because he's making.
No, it's
okay. Because he's also making his students read George MacDonald.
Oh, there you go.
Biblical students, though. I think biblical. Yeah.
The professor he's here is Gary Jenkins. He's done stuff. He had Pageau come to our school before I was there, like 9 years ago, like when Pageau was first on the map.
Wow.
So he's like,
he's ahead of the curveball.
Yeah.
Way ahead.
So it's cool.
You know, Marcus, you were talking about St. Benedict and the rule, and it brought to mind also kind of the different view of law itself between the West and the East. Metropolitan Jonah kind of pointed this out one time, where he was saying, because this affects like the whole view of salvation, what it means to be saved and what it means to be judged. And because he was saying in the West, we think of law as like the social contract. It's like the minimum list of rules that you have to agree to in order to participate in society, right? Like, you know, it's like kind of the Rousseau influence there of like, we all are just we want to live in the wilderness alone like bears, and any time we come together, it's an imposition on our free will, and we have to, so then we're going to do the minimum amount of imposition in order to live together, and that's our social contract. And Metropolitan Jonah made the point that in the East, the view of law was very different, in that the law was considered the ideal, and it was understood that no one lived up to the law. And that was the whole reason you had judges, was to adapt the law to the present situation. Right. The law was just the rule that we held, the ideal that we held to, aspired to, but the judge was trying to adapt it the best they could, because especially like you said, you can't have a rule for everything. You can't have a law for everything. And that's where the role of divination played as well, where, you know, you don't have a rule. So you, like we just heard it in the lives of Saint Aidan tonight, where should we be, hey, we met, we like each other, should we stay together or not? Let's ask God. And they put two sticks up and they fall down. If they fall down and they cross, hey, we're going to stay together. If they fall down, we go the direction that the stick's pointing, right? Like this was more common in older times. You know, we've kind of lost this, but anyway, I was just trying to tie back to what you were saying as far as like the whole view of law itself, I think is related to what you're talking about with why St. Benedict and the rule was so more popular in the West, and in the East, it didn't play the same role, just because law doesn't play the same role either.
Yeah, well, but I there's a huge time stretch there. So St. Benedict's rule is the 6th century, and then modern social contract stuff, that's like 16th century and later. Though,
well, I'm saying the social contract was an outpouring. I mean, it was an outcome of that. I'm saying it was a like classical liberalism was possible because of you know, it was like a logical conclusion of the earlier propensity for the rule, and what you were saying, like the chaos of the politics at the time, lending them toward having more of a propositional and constitutional kind of approach to society, as opposed to in the East, where it wasn't, you know, it was a more of a aspirational and an ideal, you know. So anyway, yeah, I understand there's a huge gap, but I was just saying, I think
the
it's
thing
natural to believe that it came from that.
The thing that I should be clear about, though, I guess that I think that rules themselves are also, like, if we have that higher sense of law, that's the ideal that we're supposed to be getting towards, but we can't apply it in every single case. And many times the rules that we use practically are actually that lower, they are those judges in that sense, in that we use rules to sort of, this is what fits us right now. So the law is made for man, not man for the law, I guess. Is that the right way? Yeah, that's right. So the law is made for man. So it's made for us sort of as our clothes to fit us in this realm, right? Not every piece of clothes wear out, you know, they don't fit every body, things like that, you know, but they're used to address a particular purpose, and sometimes like clinging to them, like just for rules' sake, is what gets people through certain situations, and it's what helps you survive, so that you can then continue to aspire later. So, but the hubris of the West is to think that we can find rules that characterize what rules are good rules, and then rules for those rules that rules all the rules. And then, and that's not just for social life, but for the natural sciences. And maybe we can figure out God's rules, the rules for God, and things like that. So once you think that you can solve all the problems with that solution, that's the mistake. But from history, we might have a theory of why the West tended to use that solution more than the East did. The East tended to use hey, let's rise this emperor up on our shields and have him like conquer this whole region with horses, and then we'll have peace. That solution has its problems too. So both sides are throwing their lots in different baskets. So that's what I called I called that more the Catholic Church, the hierarchy or dictator solution to these kind of problems.
Yeah, in the church governance video. Yeah.
I do have to leave soon because I have to.
Yeah, you go.
I have to teach.
One thing I was going to mention to you really quick about your paper or about your video, and I need to send you a link to it because it was a really interesting discussion. This guy was talking about two different approaches to, like, they had a protocol that they had developed in the early history of the internet, and one protocol, there was just one governing body. There was like one guy who made it, and it changed rapidly. But the problem was the changes would frequently break prior iterations. And he said, then there was this other protocol where it was governed by a body, and there were like everybody in the different places had to agree to any change. And he's like, so that just meant there was no changes. It was like almost impossible to make a change. But he said it was rock solid, and you could build a foundation on it that would last. You know, he's like, we're still using some of those fundamental technologies because they had decentralized the ability to change it. Right. I thought
I was like gridlocking it. Gridlocking and decentralized.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
so you couldn't change it, but you could iterate. I mean, you could build on it because you could trust it. It wasn't going to change.
You're gridlocking the rules at the bottom, and then you're decentralizing people's ability to build on top. So that's like having a constitution, gridlocking the constitution, and then allowing people to live in a land where they know that a certain set of rules are stable, and then there's going to be only some flexibility within that. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I wrote down to ask you to send it to me. So I'll see you guys.
I will. I'll look that up and send it to you. It was very.
Hi, Marcus. Thanks for jumping in.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to see you. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye. That's funny that he tuned in right when we were talking.
Symbolism happens.
That's just been going through my mind, you know, like it's interesting because the role of hermit, one of the things I asked myself was, you know, the role of hermit is not for everybody, right?
Right.
But here's my question. God. Here's my question. Why is it for anybody? It's not for everybody, but why is it for anybody? Right? And I think it has to do with temperament. You know, like
Yeah.
this was what we oh, there's a fly on my screen. This is what we noticed in the second Saint Faful, right? That he just didn't want to participate. He didn't want to be in these social structures and hierarchies and all that kind of thing. He just didn't like it. He wanted to be in the caves. He wanted to be alone. He wanted to,
Right.
And it's interesting. Yeah, it's just interesting to me because people don't like people who like to be alone.
They find it very suspicious.
I'm speaking from my own experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like I think I mentioned to you that my mom listened to my talk at South Estuary.
Yeah.
And she said to me, "You said you always felt alone. But Shari, you always wanted to be alone." And I said, "Yeah, it's true. Doesn't mean I didn't feel alone."
Yeah.
So, you know, but yeah, anyway, I'm kind of stuck there because it's curious to me.
Well,
I'm stuck thinking about it. I'm not stuck in it. I'm stuck thinking about it. You know, like up the road, I mean, 4 hours from us, actually. Everything's up the road. It's only one road here. There's a hermitage. There's 3 brothers there. And, you know, nobody goes there to visit. They visit other people, but nobody goes there. Right? They're Orthodox monks. And I'm glad they're there. I feel like I've got some magic happening in my part of the world because there's 3 brothers up there in Lone Butte.
Like
you know?
shield. Yeah.
Yeah, no, seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I was thinking of the story just from tonight, Theophilus, with, you know, you were asking why is that for anybody, and I was thinking about he was given a very clear message at a very early age that he didn't belong here. Nobody wanted him. And I think that's why, you know, I mean, his own mother tried to kill him. and then he became a foster child who,
but he was loved. He was loved.
He was loved. Yeah, he was loved, but at the same time, he knew what his mother tried to do. And his father died, you know, when he was very young, when he was a baby. So he never knew his father. And so he didn't get this. So this reminds me of, okay, there's a woman at church who is Armenian, and it's this Sunday she was up at the icon of Christ and she had like 20 candles and she was lighting them and she's praying out loud, and she was there for a long time, and people were kind of getting impatient, you know, like someone came to me and was like, "We need to go, this isn't right, we need to go move her." And I was just like, I'm not gonna be that person. Because I know, one, I know a little more of her story. One, two, she's my elder. I'm not gonna, like, she can stay there all, like, I hope she's praying for all of us. But I know she's praying for her family because her family was killed in front of her when she was a young girl. And she has spent her whole life longing for them, right? And missing them and not knowing them. And, you know, I have someone close to me who had the same experience. They lost their parents when they were very young, and they've spent their whole life longing for that connection, not quite being able to connect to the world as a result of not ever really connecting, you know, having that severed at such an early age. I think I'm not saying that every fool for Christ has gone through that, but I'm saying I can definitely see how a fool for Christ would come from that, where they're a wanderer, right? It's the tribe of no tribe, right? The people who feel like there is no tie, they have no connection.
Well, the question that I'm asking about why is it for anybody is not really, what makes that person become like that, or what is it that, motivates them to want to be a hermit or a fool for Christ. But, like we were talking about church hierarchy and church authority. And if you want to be a hermit, you need to ask for permission, right? And you could be denied, if you're a monk and you've got some problems and you have a good spiritual father and you ask him if you can be a hermit, he's going to say no. But if you're of that temperament, then he's going to know that about you. He's going to say, yes, this is what he needs or she needs to do, right? Probably mostly he, because
then Saint Theophilus was told no, and he did it anyway.
Yeah,
he was told no, and then he took on the fool for Christ. So he didn't actually go out and be a hermit. He just became a fool for Christ.
But here's the thing, and this is something that I keep going back to, and maybe it's because I need permission to be who I am, Jeremy. Mm-hmm. But the church leaves room for that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Even against its better judgment. Okay?
Yep.
In other words, Saint Faful was not given permission to be a hermit. He went and did it anyways, and look where he is now.
Right.
He's been venerated.
Right.
His story is in the lives of the saints. Okay? This is something that I keep coming back to within the Orthodox Church, right? I just find it fascinating. That's why I said, if it's not for everybody, then why is it for anybody? And I have a theory that it has to be that way, which is why they're fools for Christ, which is what Wendell Berry talked about in his poem. There is a thrumming in that mixture. It's not the only way to find truth. It's one way, Wendell Berry says, right? Mm-hmm. That's why it's for some people, because they can take that, let's call it contrariness to a normal life in the world, and they can make it ring with truth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I just find that really fascinating. And for me personally, it feels right, because I understand, because I know that. I know it, like, as in I have a relationship to that. I understand it.
Yeah.
Not fully. I'm not a monk, okay?
Right.
Or a fool for Christ.
Right.
But I do know it. So, and I'm just really glad that there's room for that. And I think Marcus pointed out to me that there were haywire people out there and they were doing dumb things, and the church had to deal with them. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about my patron saint, Saint Seraphim,
right.
And
right.
others like him, and Saint Faful, and there's many of them.
Yeah, it reminded me of actually Saint Christopher, where he wants to serve the most powerful king, and then he's serving the devil, and then the devil hears that a monk's coming, and so he runs away from the monk, and so he goes to serve the monk, and the monk's like, no, you don't want to serve me, you want to serve my king. Who's your king? Christ. Okay, well, how do I serve your king? Well, you need to learn how to pray. And then Saint Christopher's like, no, I can't do that.
I don't do that.
Yeah, I don't do that. And he goes, well, okay, then you need to learn how to fast. And St. Christopher's like,
No.
no, I'm not doing that either. I don't do that. And he goes, well, you need to do what you were made to do.
Mhm.
And what you were made to do is to serve other people by helping them across the river because you're strong and you're tall.
Mhm.
And so he said, if you go to the river
You'll
and help
find
other
out.
people, you'll meet Christ.
Mhm.
And, it wasn't the normative path. We're not all called. And this is why we're told not to copy the saints.
Well, this
Right.
is why there aren't any rules. And
Yeah.
here's my other thing that I've observed being a part of this with you and learning about the lives of the saints is that no two saints are the same. And they break all the rules. They break all the rules, Jeremy. Okay? So then this comes up again for me. If it's not for everybody, then why is it for anybody? Well, because that's life, isn't it?
Right. We are individual. Each of us are unique.
Right. And if you choose life, which is what God asks us to do, choose life, right? Then it's going to manifest itself in as many ways as there are human beings on the face of the earth.
Right.
Period. And the church says yes to that. It's obvious to me in the lives of the saints.
Yes. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Even the dog-headed monster can help Christ or cross the river, right?
Yeah.
There's a
And
place even for the dog-headed monster.
yeah.
And for the prostitute.
Yeah. No, really. Like, these are things that just kind of go by the wayside, you think, but I think that's where the treasure is, right? It's on those outer edges where you look,
Right.
like,
and it's hidden on
well,
the edge.
I mean, even let's just take Rahab as an example. Rahab would go unnoticed. People wouldn't look at her unless they wanted her for her services.
Right.
Okay. And good people wouldn't look at her because she was dirt, right? So
Right.
she was like a jewel in the wall of the city. Just think about it like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and there's a freedom that comes from being on the edge too, right? There's a freedom that comes from being on the margin where you're not like there's no expectations there either. Right. I mean, a lot of people who are homeless aren't homeless because they have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
They have nowhere else they would rather be. Because there is a freedom when you're not part of the hierarchy, when you're not part of the social fabric, the social structure. You do have the freedom to move and to to respond, and the flexibility, right? I mean, I'm thinking back a little bit to Marcus's earlier explorations with the margin. I think the margin, being on the margin, also gives you the freedom to move in a way that you can't when you're in the center. When you have people watching you and there's expectations, and when if you're responsible for a family or you're responsible for a monastery or an abbot, whatever, there's certain things you can't. It's much more difficult for you to do. But if you're alone and no one's relying on you for anything, you're able to kneel on a rock for a year and pray. You're able to be in that spirit and stay there as long as you need to.
Well, you were talking earlier about genealogies, those silly genealogies.
Yeah.
Rahab is in Christ's genealogy.
Right. Well, she's one of the stories that include the scarlet rope, right? There's a scarlet thread where there's the two twins, and with the scarlet bracelet that was put on one of the twins that came out first, and then he got the bracelet and then he went back, and that story. And then there's Rahab with the scarlet rope, and then you have, you have Esau was the red man, and then you have, Theotokos was making the veil of the temple out of scarlet thread.
Yeah.
When, at the Annunciation. And so, yeah, there's that. That's a very strong
Theme.
connection to the story. Yeah, I mean, it's literally she's part of the thread, right? Like the thread that leads to Christ. That scarlet rope.
Yeah. Just a few things to think about.
We shut down no one's chatting. No one's I guess we're not saying controversial things. People are
we're just thinking out loud, and maybe people are just thinking along. I hope that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not saying this is that and that is this.
Yeah. Well, and
I'm just talking about my own observations.
Yep.
In the time that I've been doing this with you, and I've always had the feeling that the Synaxarion is like a wrench that the church throws into its own dogma.
Oh yeah. Right.
It's like you've got a book in each hand, and they don't tell you to read the dogma. They say read this. I mean, I don't even know what church dogma is actually in the Orthodox Church. I know we have the Nicene Creed, and
yeah.
But every time I think something is forbidden, I was going to say verboten, in German, I find out it isn't. There, there
are not a lot of dogmatic commitments.
No. So, and I'm not looking for some kind of crazy freedom in my journey. But I feel like I'm seen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that.
Well, what came to mind, I've never had this thought before, but you were saying lives of the saints were like a wrench thrown into the dogma. What came to mind was I asked Jonathan about the role of graffiti one time, and he said that graffiti is like a commentary on a hierarchy or a culture or a society or a building getting too prideful, right? It's like vainglory. It's like pointing at the pride that was behind what was built, right? It's like reminding you to not be prideful. And what came to mind was actually like in Romania, they have on their churches, they have icons on the outside of the church, right? So the icons of the saints are actually like graffiti on the outside of the church, right? So you have the beauty of the church, but then you have the graffiti of the lives of the saints, or just like
he would go insane in Berlin. My son, the first time I went to Berlin, he took me to this old CIA listening station in Berlin. So it was on the west side, and of course they were listening over, to the Soviets. And what a place. And it's completely abandoned. Okay.
Wow.
And they have these huge, like, balls. They're buildings, but they're round. And one of them is pretty much demolished. It's covered in some kind of a cloth, and the cloth's all torn. And it's left like this, okay? Like on purpose. And here's the deal. It's built on the highest. Berlin is flat. It's like completely flat there. But after the Second World War, they heaped up all the rubble and built 2 mountains. And those 2 mountains are called Devil's Mountain. And that's where the CIA's listening station is, on top of it. Okay?
Yeah.
And then you go
and happens.
And you go in, and actually when you walk up there, you have to walk up a pathway up there. And there's a bunch of, they call them in Europe alternative people.
Mm.
So they're most, I guess, you'd call them hippies, but they're not old. they're young people,
Mm.
and they live there,
Mm.
and they take money. It's not, and it's not owned by the city or anything, or them for that matter, but they get to live there. Okay, so they're also like jokers, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's a mess. There's pallets and there's garbage and there's, and it's just like it's like a wasteland. And these people are not drug addicts, they're not homeless. It's not like that.
Mhm.
Okay. They have graffiti competitions there.
Mm.
They have this huge ball that you go in where they used to listen, and the acoustics in there are insane. You can talk in the tiniest little whisper, and it just fills the whole room.
Mm-hmm.
And so people go in there, and it's like a sacred space.
Yeah.
They sit in there, and it's so insulated that it's like a sound booth, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe somebody has a musical instrument and they start lightly, and everybody just is in this, like, it is the most insane place to visit.
That's wild. Yeah, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah. That's quite the place.
Yeah,
And,
that sounds great.
like, I think Jonathan Pageau needs to go there and just wander around and just take it all in.
Yeah.
There was this bathtub sitting out, and like there's tunnels that you go in and you can walk through, and it's pitch black. You got to turn your phone. My son has phone, so he's turning on his flashlight, and then we get up onto this higher spot, and there's a bathtub, and then there's these wine glasses that are all broken. I said to my daughter-in-law, "Get in that bathtub. I got to take a picture." Here, and I handed her a broken wine glass. And
Right. That's the spirit of the place. Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
I get it.
It's just like it's like living art, and it's so symbolic. It's insane.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? It's sitting on top of the rubble from the Second World War.
Right. Devil Mountain. Isn't there a Father Stephen DeYoung talked about this? There was a portal. There's a mountain in Germany, and it was basically considered one of the portals where the devils would come out. And there's a museum there now, but I can't remember what it was called. I'll have to see if I can find that. I don't know. Maybe you've heard of it, but I first have to remember what it was called.
I am going to share screen with you just so I just got to show this to you. I know it's getting late, Jeremy, but I'm just going to show you this here. There we go. So, can you see it?
Yes.
So this is it. Teufelsberg. That means Devil Mountain. Okay.
Huh.
Teufelsberg.
That is wild.
And here's where I took the picture of my daughter-in-law in the bathtub. She was right here, right there, in front of this thing.
I think it's not coincidental that it looks like the Epcot Center at Walt Disney World.
Probably not. Oh my god. Just see if we can get some
Yeah. Oh, that's a Buckminster Fuller design for the dome.
Yeah, see, there's 3 of them there. And I'm trying to remember which one.
Dude, there's 3. That's interesting.
I think, yeah, I was up in here. I was all up in there. I'm just trying to get some outdoor pictures here so you can kind of see. I mean, the graffiti's always changing, right?
Yeah.
Because
that's the nature of it.
Yeah, here. And then inside they do these graffiti things too. I was there for a little graffiti competition.
Wow.
Anyways, this is what it looks like, and it's just it's just run, right?
Yeah.
Run by these people. And it's, whatever money you make, you give them, they use it for supposedly upkeep for the place.
Mm. Yeah.
See, look at that. That's what it looks like there. It's crazy. Anyway.
No, that's cool. That's fun. I've never heard of that. That's very cool.
Yeah. Teufelsberg.
Three towers on the Devil's Mountain, built from the rubble of World War II. Oh, man, that's so dark.
Those mountains are not natural. That's all the rubble from the Second World War. Berlin is just, and you were talking about graffiti as bringing down the pride of the city.
Mm-hmm.
Berlin is covered in graffiti.
Mm-hmm.
And Berlin is the capital city of Germany, right?
Right.
So you've got this part of Berlin like Brandenburg Tor, and then you've got all this district where the Bundeshaus and like their parliament or whatever, and all the embassies, and it's very grand. But then there's these huge places in Berlin that are just like dirty and covered in graffiti, and when you said that about the graffiti, bringing the targeting the pride.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like you've got both of those things happening in that city. That city is something. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
It is really. Yeah. I've never been anywhere like Berlin. It's such a contradictory place. You've got, on the trains, you've got all these drug addicts and homeless people, and and then families with strollers and babies, and like it's just, and then you've got the techno scene, and you've got Arab people, like lots of Arabs, whole sections of the city, and Turks, lots of Turks, tons of Turks.
Yeah.
And then you've got all this, it's the hub of Europe. Yeah. I mean, it's Germany is the hub of Europe. And anyways, it's just a real coming together of opposites, let me tell you.
That's interesting. Yeah, I haven't been there. I flew through Frankfurt, but
I wouldn't recommend just going to Berlin if you don't know anybody from there, because Berlin is like, I don't think I would have ever liked it. I would have gone there and hated it and left and never went back. But my son has taken me places there, and I've been able to see the city through his eyes.
Yeah.
And so it really, it's a really fascinating place, like in that sense. I find anyway. I find it really fascinating.
The city of paradoxes, right? Like,
yeah, that's exactly it. That's the word that I didn't say, but I meant to.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Huh.
Yeah. So, shall we sign off here?
Yeah, we probably should.
Yeah.
I got a
work day tomorrow.
Yep, gotta work.
Yeah.
If you missed it at the very beginning of the show, I talked about standard time, because today in 1883 is when standard time was rolled out in the United States, and I gave that history lesson. So if you're interested, head back to the beginning of the stream and catch that.
Yeah.
But I want to thank everybody for joining us. This is a pleasure. I look forward to it every week, and
me too.
I'm glad we could do it, and I'm glad that we had some help with paying the bills. I appreciate that. Thank you. God bless you. God bless all of you. Thanks for joining us. And if you're watching this later, God bless you too. We're grateful that you're part of what we're doing here, and may we all have the intercession of the saints. And
leave us a comment. Leave us a comment. I really love reading comments, and there's hardly ever comments. So
tell us how crazy and stupid we are. We need to hear it. Good night, everyone.
Even suggestions for future.
Yes.
Show, you know,
Other
that's
saints you
what-
want to hear about, or other things you want
Yeah.
us to talk about.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd
love
be
it.
great. We'd love the feedback. That's true.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, thanks a lot. Have a good night.
Good night, all. Thank you.